Hello and welcome to Culture Express Extra. Now, this is your weekly opportunity to see a little bit behind the scenes here at Culture Express on CCTV News. It's a good opportunity for us to meet some of our hosts, some of our reporters, to talk to them about what goes on behind the scenes on Culture Express. Now, today I have brought you, as I'm sure you can see, into outer space, but actually also to the moon, because we are sitting on the moon. The lunar landing has happened here right now, and I've brought with me Stanley Lee. Hello, Stanley Lee.
Hi.
Now, I've brought you here specifically, Stanley, as I'm sure you all know, Stanley is one of our exceptional reporters on Culture Express. Stanley, I hear that you're a bit of a movie buff.
Yeah, that's right. I watched the latest film called Gravity, which is kind of related to
Which is
theme.
apt, considering we are in space. We should be floating.
Yeah,
right now.
yeah, we're over the moon right now. Yeah.
We are over the moon. I'm over the moon to have you here, Stanley.
Yeah.
I
Thank you,
really wanted to do this in
Glad to be here.
spacesuits. Spacesuits.
Yeah.
But apparently the costume department here at CCTV wouldn't stretch
Yeah,
to that. They
yeah,
don't
it's
have
too bad.
spacesuits here, Shama. Okay, so you've seen Gravity recently.
Yeah.
Now, are you so you're a keen moviegoer? You go to the film. You go to the movies a lot.
I first I look at the ratings, and then I decided whether to go. And Gravity was really high rated, so why not? So I decided to go.
Highly rated.
Yeah,
Rotten
yeah.
Tomatoes, I think it was about 99% or something. On
Yeah,
Rotten
yeah,
Tomatoes.
yeah.
What was your verdict?
Well, I think it's a very special movie, and sometimes it's pretty amazing. It's very different from other films I've watched. And I think what the director is trying to get at is when you take away all the noise, all the distractions, and you just put these two people, and then it's all very quiet, and then you just watch their emotions, what they're going through, and how scared they are, by the tragedy. It's pretty amazing to see how precious human life is once you take away all the distractions. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
What about Oscars? Do you think it's going to get any Oscar nominations? Do you think it'll win? I know there's some talk about Sandra Bullock winning an Oscar for her role. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think Sandra did a good job, and I think
Sandra, old mate Sandra. Yeah, she did do a good job, old Sandra.
Yeah.
But do you think it's Oscar worthy though? She doesn't really say very much, does she?
Yeah, I think it's hard to say because there's more competition coming up, so we'll see what'll happen there. Yeah.
One of my favourite lines in that movie is when she says, "I hate space."
Yeah, that's meant to be funny because it can be a little bit tense. So it's just something to loosen things up.
Oh, I hate space.
Yeah.
I don't hate space. I love space today because we are in space. Remember, here on the Starship Enterprise.
Yeah.
Now, Stanley, tell me a bit more about your role on Culture Express. We see you do loads of different reports all the time.
Yeah.
A big variety of stuff, as most people do, most of our reporters do. How long have you been on the show?
About 3 years now. Yeah, I started out as an editor, and now I'm doing field reports and reporting back. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Now we talked a little bit about your interest in movies. What types of reports do you like covering the most?
Well, it's a very interesting story for me because I think my time working here has really shaped my perspective on culture. I spent a significant part of my childhood in Canada, so I was kind of living in two cultural worlds at the same time, and I think working here is a great privilege because it kind of helped me to rediscover the value of the Chinese traditional arts. Yeah. In particular, I want to mention is at the time there was one time I went to a National Academy of Theatre Arts, and there were foreigners. They were learning Peking opera, and they were coming from Norway and Finland and all of that. And I was really fascinated because sometimes if you grow up as a Chinese and sometimes you kind of just take the culture for granted, it's easy to get an impression of it, oh, that's the old stuff, we always have that, it's always there, so let's get the new stuff, which is, the pop stuff, the music, pop music, or sometimes the Western popular music stuff and the movie stuff. But then I was talking to one of the people who were learning Peking opera, and I asked why did you choose to play wusheng? Wusheng is the kind of a martial role in Peking opera. He sings and then there's acrobatics. And he gave a very profound answer. He was he stared into the void and he thought hard, and then he said, I didn't choose wusheng. Wusheng chose me. Yeah, nice. And I was wow, that really left a deep impression. And And
it's very fitting, this backdrop, when you're talking about this study. I'm looking at you and you're in outer space talking about these profound things, and that's really interesting.
Yeah.
So you feel like you've become much more connected to your
Chinese culture.
Heritage, really.
Really. I could really understand where he was coming from. He first saw a wusheng show in Finland, and it was kind of like, there were lots of people watching the show, and then suddenly the wusheng came on stage, and the place went dark, and there was a beam of light shining on the guy. It's like, oh, that's it. That's what I'm gonna do for the rest of my life.
Wow.
So that's pretty impressive for me. Yeah. So I really had to ask myself this question, which is, Stanley, have you been overlooking, the valuable Chinese culture that's around you? It's easy to take it for granted and say, oh, ho hum, it's always there. So yeah, it's kind of like when I'm in university, I have lots of roommates from America. And they come here and they ask me, ask, what are you doing? It's like, this week in Chengdu, that week in Lhasa, Great Wall, and say, wow, busy schedule. They're here, they're eager to learn, and they're sucking in all the experiences, which I sometimes take for granted. So I've really started, revisiting Chinese culture, the calligraphy, the aesthetics, and all of that. So it's pretty intense experience for me. Yeah.
How do you feel about I suppose reimagining lots of parts of Chinese culture for a modern audience? Because I know there's a lot of talk about this at the moment, how we can continue cultural heritage, essentially. We talk about it a lot on Culture Express. It is very important, and I obviously you touched upon it here, talking about you rediscovering your cultural heritage.
Yeah.
But how well do you think directors, producers are doing that here in China generally, but also particularly in Beijing? There's been lots of performances recently where we've seen modern elements incorporated into the productions. Yeah. For example, the production that you covered of L'Italiana in Algheri is a modern interpretation, or fairly modern interpretation, of an old classic, obviously. I know that's not Chinese, it's Italian. But how well do you think Chinese directors are doing that here to reimagine these pieces for a modern audience?
Well, I think reimagining these classic Chinese works for modern audiences, there's no easy answers to that. I mean, you could just put in some modern elements, and they would seem kind of out of place and artificial, and that's easy to do. But how do you make them fit together quite well? That's a thing that we should explore, and there are no easy answers. And this may sound abstract, but I would say you need to get under the philosophy behind those two arts, and then join them in their thinking, and not just the outer elements like costumes and all of that. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, for example, in the West, people view time as kind of linear, like progression, but in the East, it's kind of like a circle, right? So if you have a play, then maybe you could have both. It's linear, but then you can see there's some kind of a cycle going around, a way to arrange time. Just throwing out some ideas. How different cultures treat basic elements, and how we can put that into a performance. Yeah. In
order for it to reach the widest possible audience possible. Because all of these, the thing that strikes me the most, having been in China now for nearly 4 years, is how rich this cultural tapestry is. I know it sounds like a cliche, but it's such an incredibly long amount of time. And the culture is so embedded within the history of this country. And I think how we can keep revitalizing those things, because what a lot of people are concerned about is that they're no longer relevant in today's society. When actually we need to find ways that they are relevant, because I believe that they still are. There's a place in culture and entertainment for all of these things. It's really important that we don't lose that. Yeah,
and this is what we try to do at Culture Express. We have Western shows, modern shows, and then we also explore and the rich heritage of Chinese culture, and we're trying to hold it together for all to see here. And we have interviews with people who are doing pretty well in both areas. Kind of like Lang Lang, for example, one example. Yeah, exactly.
Able to combine all of those elements and bring it to a modern audience. Yeah, that's really interesting, Stanley. Really nice to hear. Thank you. Okay, you've also covered lots of. I often see you reporting from auctions as well. You were at the China Guardian recently.
China Guardian, yeah.
Is that something that you enjoy doing? You like going to these auctions?
I fairly enjoy it, and what's interesting is this is not my first time there. and I was kind of able to see like a development. What's interesting is in 2011, the market took quite a hit due to the financial slowdown, and then in 2012 it's doing better. Yeah, and this year it's doing much better, but still not as good as 2011. But we're seeing a surge there, so that's pretty encouraging. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much for joining us, and of course don't forget to tune in to Culture Express on CCTV News. See you again.